Get on board the Bernier bus train. Come get on board the Bernier bus train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Go get on board the Bernier bus train. Noon USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernier Bus Show. Today, Dr. Cornel West advises us to pity the sad legacy of Barack Obama. Our hope and change candidate fell short time and time again. Obama cheerleaders who refused to make him accountable bear some responsibility. This is from January 9th, 2017. 8 years ago, the world was on the brink of a grand celebration, the inauguration of a brilliant and charismatic black president of the United States of America. Today, we are on the edge of an abyss, the installation of a mendacious and cathartic white president who will replace him. This is a depressing decline in the highest office of the most powerful empire in the history of the world. It could easily produce a pervasive cynicism and poisonous nihilism. Is there really any hope for truth and justice in this decadent time? Does America even have the capacity to be honest about itself and come to terms with its self-destructive addiction to money worship and cowardly xenophobia? Ralph Waldo Emerson and Herman Melville, the two great public intellectuals of 19th century America, wrestled with similar questions and reached the same conclusion as Heraclitus: character is destiny. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. The age of Barack Obama may have been our last chance to break from our neoliberal soulcraft. We are rooted in market-driven brands that shun integrity and profit-driven policies that trump public goods. Our post-integrity and post-truth world is suffocated by entertaining brands and money-making activities that have little or nothing to do with truth, integrity, or the long-term survival of the planet. We are witnessing the postmodern version of the full-scale gangsterization of the world. The reign of Obama did not produce the nightmare of Donald Trump, but it did contribute to it. And those Obama cheerleaders who refused to make him accountable bear some responsibility. A few of us begged and pleaded with Obama to break with the Wall Street priorities and bail out Main Street, but he followed the advice of his smart neoliberal advisors to bail out Wall Street. In March 2009, Obama met with Wall Street leaders. He proclaimed, "I stand between you and the pitchforks. I am on your side and I will protect you," he promised them. And not one Wall Street criminal executive went to jail. And that is the legacy of former President Barack Obama. Jose de Vega shared a link. Obama takes veiled shot at Warren and Sanders, warns 2020 Dems Americans don't want to tear down the system. He has become Barack Obama has become an oligarch. He was a murderous president, the lord of the drones, who cowardly killed thousands of innocent people, including women and children, and the king of deportations, having destroyed more families and deported more immigrants than his two predecessors combined. He also gave hundreds of billions to Wall Street to bail their fraud out and reneged on campaign promises of immediate immigration reform with a path to citizenship. During my first 100 days in office, he had majority in both houses at the time, so any proposal presented would have passed. He sold his soul to capital and betrayed even his own race that saw the so-called war on drugs decimate black communities deeper than ever before, while keeping blacks enslaved in prison, working for pennies for the prison lobby. And his crown jewel, Obamacare, was another swindle to appease and make even richer his friends in the insurance and pharmaceutical industries. So thank you, Obama, but shut the hell up, Obama, okay? One of the most nefarious presidents in history, probably the worst, if not compared to the current one. Tim Black is another pundit who comments similarly about President Obama. I have so many pieces here that I didn't include all of them, but let's go right to the New York Times. This is where Obama is addressing a bunch of rich people, a bunch of liberal donors, and he warned the candidates in that speech to them not to go too far left and sought to calm those who were concerned about the state of the Democratic primary. By Lisa Lehrer. Former President Barack Obama offered an unusual warning to the Democratic Party field on Friday evening, cautioning the candidates not to move too far to the left in their policy proposals, even as he sought to reassure a party establishment worried about the electoral strength of their historically large primary field. Speaking before a room of wealthy liberal donors, Mr. Obama urged Democrats to remember the long combative slog of his primary campaign. Yet he also raised concerns about some of the liberal ideas being promoted by some candidates, citing health care and immigration as issues where the proposals may have gone farther than public opinion. He's lying about that. That's flat out wrong. Public opinion is actually farther left than many of these proposals are. The other thing he's saying that is very disturbing is that we're out of touch. He's saying that we voters don't really want the proposals that are coming from the left. What he's really doing is appeasing the donor class. He's aiming at people, particularly Bernie Sanders, who intend to take down those donors. And so that's where Mr. Obama is coming from. He's a fraud. He's a neoliberal shill. The kind of government he had is why we have Donald Trump. How to inoculate yourself from establishment bullshit. This is Caitlin Johnstone. In a sane, healthy world, a presidency like Obama's would be looked upon with abject horror. Actually, in a sane, healthy world, a warmongering Wall Street crony like Obama would never have been elected in the first place. But if you were to show the members of a healthy, harmonious society the way that that president used his power to do what he did to Libya and Syria, to continue and expand all of Bush's most evil policies, to divert the push for economic justice into a neoliberal orgy for 8 years, those people would recoil in absolute revulsion. The only reason liberals think Obama had a low-key, drama-free presidency is because that presidency was normalized for them by the establishment narrative managers of the political media class. If that class had been shrieking about Obama's warmongering, surveillance expansion, persecution of whistleblowers, crony capitalism, etc., in the way that it's been shrieking about Trump's non-existent Russia ties or his obnoxious tweets, these same people would see Obama as a horrible monster. But the propagandists didn't do that because it would hinder the cause of bloodthirsty imperialism abroad and crushing austerity at home. The plutocrat-owned media and the plutocrat-owned politicians have the ability to control what people view as normal and what they view as weird, just by not reacting with alarm to occurrences they want normalized and reacting hysterically to occurrences they want rejected. This article is by Michael Sainato, December of 2016. Instead of hope and change, Obama gave progressives Trump. President Obama's overall presidency was a letdown for progressives expecting the hope and change his 2008 and 2012 presidential campaigns promised. In many areas where Obama had the opportunity to deviate from the status quo, he fully embraced it instead. Under his watch, the United States maintained an interventionist foreign policy spearheaded by Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State. In Obama's first 5 years, the United States exported $30 billion more in weapons to foreign governments than George W. Bush did in 8 years. These weapons fueled unrest and violence in the Middle East. This was in 2016, Obama has bombed 7 foreign countries throughout his presidency, and he fully embraced the highly controversial use of drone strikes. Despite saying in 2008 I will not waste a minute brokering Middle East peace. In 2008, President Obama promised to increase protections for whistleblowers. Those promises were scrubbed from his website in 2013 in favor of a war on whistleblowers against his administration. In the Obama era, there have been 8 prosecutions under the 1917 Espionage Act, more than double those under all previous presidents combined, The Guardian reported last year. While whistleblowers suffer, top-level executives and government officials are granted impunity for violating the law. No big bankers were punished after the 2008 economic recession they caused, but the big banks were bailed out. The individuals in Obama's administration who are responsible for prosecuting big bankers, former Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner, former Attorney General Eric Holder, and former Department of Justice official Lanny Breuer, now all make millions working on behalf of Wall Street. During his presidential campaign in 2007, Obama promised he would have the most transparent and accountable administration in history. That never happened, and in many ways, his has been the least transparent and accountable in history. And on and on. And this is the president who is trying to make billionaires feel better, and trying to warn all of us that Bernie Sanders is not, as his programs especially, are not appealing to the American people, which couldn't be further from the truth. He's trying to scare us away from somebody who's scaring his donors. And that's what Elizabeth Warren, the surrogate of Hillary Clinton, that's just what she would do. She will take the advice of the donor class. And the proof of that is this article here. Warren says getting to Medicare for all will take 3 years. Democrat Elizabeth Warren says that if she's elected president, she won't immediately push to give every American government-funded health care. She announced Friday, this article came out just a couple days ago, she announced Friday that she would expand public health insurance during her first 100 days in office, but wouldn't push for passage of a Medicare for All program until the 3rd year of her presidency. So like Obama and like Hillary Clinton, she is telling us why we can't have what we want and what we need. And she'll keep doing that. If she's already doing that, imagine what's going to happen later. So Dr. Cornel West is right. Kyle Kulinski is right.
So in other words, the biggest criticism that the left has against Elizabeth Warren, she just said in no uncertain terms, oh, that criticism is totally merited and you shouldn't trust me on foreign policy.
Because they asked her point blank if she would reduce military spending and I forgot the other one, but she just went right around the question, as she does. She didn't even answer it. And so Kyle will tell us what we can conclude from that.
That's what just happened. That's it. That's what just happened. Oh, don't trust me on foreign policy. No, I'm really bad on that. So now we have a candidate, and again, nowhere near Bernie, just be honest about that. Bernie's talking about cutting aid to Israel, and redirecting some of that money for humanitarian aid in Gaza.
That was the other one. They asked her point blank if she would use some of the money to help kids in Palestine. And she just wouldn't even answer the question.
Talking about leveraging our subsidy to them. Warren voted for Trump's military budget. Bernie is in favor of eliminating all student loan debt. Bernie is in favor of eliminating all medical debt. Elizabeth Warren, not in favor of eliminating all student loan debt, not in favor of eliminating all medical debt.
That's what Obama would want. That's what Hillary would want. And that's what their donors would want.
I mean, they're not really close. Like, we're not... Is anybody under that, under that delusion anymore? I'm so happy that Cenk Uygur came out and endorsed Bernie the other day. I knew, in his heart of hearts, I knew all along he leaned in favor of Bernie. So it was weird to me that there was still he was doing like a little bit of a false equivalence there for an extended period of time, where he was like, oh, Warren and Bernie, Warren and Bernie, Warren and Bernie, and acting like it's 50-50. It's not. It's nowhere near 50-50.
No.
And this is just yet another example. It wasn't even an art.
You keep your eye on Cenk, though, Kyle. Keep your eye on him, because if they rig it again, he'll sheepdog us right back to Elizabeth. You mark my words. He'll never be Bernie or bust. And I would wonder about you sometimes if you would ever be Bernie or bust. Because if you really are serious about what you're saying, about what you want to achieve, it's got to be done through labor. I also don't hear you talk a lot about labor unions, and I would like to hear that, because that's where Elizabeth really falls down. She's not going to mobilize the labor force. And if you want the hope and change that Obama promised, then you need to mobilize the labor force. And that person is going to be Bernie Sanders. And right now it won't be anyone else. I don't know who else highly positioned is going to mobilize the labor force. I would like you to ask Cenk the next time you're on his show how he feels about mobilizing the labor force, and if he really wants the hope and change that he says he wants, and if so, he's not going to sheepdog us back into the corrupt DNC. He's gonna, if he really wants to lead a revolution, what he should do before we pick up pitchforks, before we put on our yellow vests, what we should really do is pledge right now that we are not going to vote for Elizabeth Warren if they anoint her. Right now, we should say, nope, it's not going to happen. And even if we don't say that, it's still impossible for Elizabeth to get a general election victory. It's impossible, and we've already promised you that. But it wouldn't hurt if you would jump on the Bernie or bust train with us.
Artful way of BSing your way through the question. I've seen Trump more artfully BS a question than that. But it was just like, I believe, systemic reform is good. It's good, and we should do more of systemic reform. I asked you about cutting the military budget and protecting Palestinian kids. New phone, who dis?
New phone, who dis? Yeah, well, if you don't want to be accused of the same thing, then it would be good for you to come right out now and say, Bernie or bust is the only way we're going to unrig this. What does Crystal Ball have to say?
Relentlessly cheerful and unflappable, never cross, always ready with a plan or a folksy quip or a tale from her upbringing on the ragged edge of the middle class.
The ragged edge of the middle class. This is Elizabeth Warren, of course, that Crystal is talking about.
Sort of peppy silver sneakers cheerleader with the right answer always ready to go. But every once in a while, Warren's mask slips, and always in circumstances when she's caught off guard. You see, mostly she hasn't faced that much tough questioning. Unlike Sanders and Buttigieg and others, she refuses to go on Fox News. She's extraordinarily careful about the interviews she sits for, and so she's usually fully in control. So you end up with things like this CNN interview with her husband, which was so extraordinarily fluffy that Sagar did a whole monologue on it. Toughest cue was actually to Bruce Warren, quote, if she does become the nominee, she will go up against President Trump. Are you ready for that? Warren also gave an interview to Entertainment Weekly on her favorite TV show, which is allegedly Ballers. Most of the media is more interested in exposés on her selfie lines than on really challenging her in non-stupid ways. But every once in a while, she gets hit with a real question. Remember this moment on the campaign trail when right after dropping a 7-figure ad buy focused on anti-corruption, she got asked whether her plan would have barred Hunter Biden from sitting on the board of Burisma.
For 2 ethics plans, could you say whether or not under a Warren administration would your vice president's child be allowed to serve on a board of a foreign company?
No.
Why
No.
not?
What?
I don't.
No.
I don't know.
I don't know.
The details.
Do you think there could be a
look at her.
I have to go back and look.
I have to go back.
You can just see the political calculation in real time. She wants to say no because she knows that Hunter serving on that board is wrong. But she doesn't want to.
Yeah. It's hilarious and painful. If you go back in the clip with Kyle Kalinske back earlier in that same clip, you'll see the same kind. I can't even stand to watch her. She does that body language. Jimmy Dore and Tim Black are hilarious when they point out how you can tell when she's lying because of her body language. She's got that thing she does, and And also her rib cage. She kind of holds her rib cage every time she's lying. You're going to see a lot more of that going forward if you nominate her, folks. Yeah, there's that article. Warren says getting to Medicare for all will take 3 years. She will show you a lot of that body language when you're trying to ask her, when are we actually going to get Medicare for all? I'll leave this one in the information section. You can read this one, ABC News. And I've got other information here that's relevant. I'm going to share that tomorrow so this doesn't get too long. So please do come back tomorrow, tune in, and we'll hear more about how... The one clip tomorrow, I'm going to do Chris Hedges interviewing Paul Street, and that is really interesting. But that one is dense, and so it would take longer than it should. You can't add that onto the end of a show. We've got to start with him tomorrow. So I hope to see you tomorrow. Hope your day starts off great, or your week starts off great. Get a little more rest, and see you bright-eyed and bushy-tailed tomorrow. Keep on burning.
Get on board the Bernier bus train. Come get on board the Bernier bus train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Go get on board